focused on hope in particular in heaven. And then November, we've been talking about love, and in particular, this really difficult piece of love called agape love, unconditional love. And so we talked, last week about love when we're dealing with mental health issues or chronic illness. And tonight we're going to be talking about love and grieving. When we lose, whether that be someone or something major or an accumulation of things in our lives. And we have two sisters actually that are going to come and guide us through, this topic tonight. So we're really excited about that. So I'm going to invite Juna, to come on down.
Thank you. I actually have a handout.
Come on, Juna. We like handouts.
Just because there's so much information. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone and bring Stephanie for letting me come up and share on this topic, because it is a topic that's dear to my heart for some reason. And I just want to preface everything by saying that, grief and grief work, the grief process, this whole topic, it's a specialty. Like, there's entire organizations dedicated just to this topic. And so I think that the lessons that we've had so far have done a good job of trying to just really encapsulate a whole lot of information. So thank you for that. And I also want to say, as the congregation matures, and I don't mean ages, because we're all aging, some of us are aging more than others, but as we mature, we're going to be seeing more loss, death, life transitions, what else did I put on there? Sickness, health issues. It's, just kind of feels so heavy. But it's reality, if people are going to stick around and get old and stay, we're going to face these things. And even in the last year, I just want to talk about, these are just people in my personal circle, not even ripple circles, but losses people in my personal circle have faced this year in this room. Loss of a job unexpectedly, infertility, loss of a grandparent that was near and dear to the heart. There was a couple whose coworker lost a child. I just had a coworker who lost a child. Loss of, and aging. I think aging can be a loss because you're starting to lose your health and your looks and a lot of other stuff. Come on. So, but I really do hope that you'll just educate yourselves more on this topic. So I'm going to, you guys know me, I don't even have an iPhone to correct all this stuff. So I'm going to approach this from two angles. So one, loving as the comforter. Did I have slides? I did. Okay, so the comforter. How do you love people when they're experiencing a loss? And one word that really encompasses this is presence. Presence, not the kind of presents you get under the Christmas tree, but your presence. And that sounds like a little, so let's talk about what that means more really quickly. And God is really smart, and he actually addresses this in Job chapter 2 in verse 11 through 13. So if you have a Bible, look there, because I got this cool dog, and I forgot to put the scriptures up there. But I'm going to read Job chapter 2, verses 11 through 13. Hopefully most of you are familiar with Job and his story. It says, "Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, they came each one from his own place, and they made an appointment together to come sympathize with him and comfort him. When they lifted up their eyes at a distance and did not recognize him, they raised their voices and wept, and each of them tore his robe, and they threw dust over their heads toward the sky. Then They sat down on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one speaking a word to him, for they saw that his pain was very great.
Dang.
So this is, I won't read it, but there's actually even a section of Jewish law that's based around how to treat mourners based on this little scripture. And so we can kind of look at it and learn a lot. First of all, I see Job's friends, they made an appointment. They didn't just show up. Now sometimes it is really nice to have people just stop by or show up when you're in the throes of grief. But sometimes it's not, because when people are grieving, their capacity is very diminished, physically and emotionally, in all kinds of ways, spiritually. So Job's friends made an appointment, and they made an appointment with each other. They're like, hey, Brian, so-and-so's having a hard time, let's go. Let's not do this alone, let's go together. And then, of course, we've been hearing a lot about self-awareness, but when Job's friends saw him at a distance, they just broke down and wept. They were just like, oh my gosh, they didn't even recognize him. That's like, how messed up Job was. But I just see that when they saw him from a distance, they had their feelings. They had their, they wept, they tore their clothes, then they went and sat down. They dealt with them first. Okay, they were self-aware. And some things I think that we can be self-aware of when we're trying to comfort grieving people is our own unprocessed losses, which it might behoove some of us to sit and think, do I have those? And I bet you do. Because it's just good to remember that the grieving, suffering person, they're at the center of the pain circle, not you. You can go outside their pain circle and get support, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they're not going to be the one that you can process that with. And I'll give you an example. Sumet and I lost a child, and there was a person in our life who I love very much, but would call me crying and weeping, and they were so upset about the loss and what they were experiencing. And I just finally very gently said, I'm not the person to talk to about this. And they understood, I think, so it's really good to be self-aware. So Job's friends were self-aware of their feelings. They got that out. And then this is my favorite thing, and it's up there. The next thing they did is they sat in silence for 7 days. They sat. And they were quiet for a whole week. And I just have to ask, could you do this? Because I know I couldn't. I can't sit still, and I can't stop talking. But they didn't do anything, and they didn't say anything. It's when Job's friends opened their mouths to try to explain away or religiousze what Job was experiencing that they got into trouble, and then God rebukes them at the end of the chapter or the end of the book. And I think we can learn a lot from this. So often what I hear from comforters is, I just didn't know what to say. Well, guess what? You don't have to say anything. Because your presence, you just going there and being with the person is enough. And I think Psalm 46:10, write that down. Just be still. God's in charge. You don't have to have this magic bullet that's going to make the person feel better, because I have some sad news. You can't make them feel better, and nor should you, because when someone loses a loved one, their pain is an expression of how much love they really felt for that person. And so they need to feel that. And then, so I was going to read this little, for the sake of time I won't, but then Job speaks. So Job gets to talk first. Job gets to talk first. And I think God's so smart. It's like, hey, let the griever lead the conversation. What do they want to talk about? What do they have to say? And that's why I picked this dog, because he has really big ears. He's listening to what the person has to say, and that's all you have to do. And so speaking of things to say, I want to go through really quickly. People say really weird stuff to grieving people, and there's actually been research done on this. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to throw some up there that you guys can kind of read, and then I'm going to go through a couple. So one thing that we do, and I have done, is to say, what do you need? What can I do? And that sounds really awesome and nice. However, it does put the burden on the suffering person to come up with how you can help them, which feels like a lot when you're suffering. And so instead, because I don't want to just like, well, then what do I do? What do I say? Get really specific about what you can do for this person. Hey, I can have coffee with you on Wednesday. Does that work for you? I'm free on Monday to come clean your house. Does that work? Can I do that? Just get really specific about what it is that you can or can't do for the person. Because if you were to say, well, what do you need? And be like, I need my son back, and I need the clock to turn back, and I need the whole world to stop spinning. Okay, I don't think anybody can do that. So, not to be, or you can give the person a book. Someone did that for me, and Ray mentioned that last week. That was super helpful. Or you can say, who's organizing the memorial? I'd like to help that person, because that person's more likely to be able to direct you. And then I said no saying stuff that's not helpful. So here's some of the research-based things that are not helpful to say to grieving people. I'm really sorry, because I know I've said these things and probably said them too, but I know how you feel. And then you share your really sad story about yourself. The person's like, oh boy. Okay, and these are research-based by Dr. Kenneth Hauk. He's a PhD grief researcher. It's for the best. It's for the best that you got sick unexpectedly and were paralyzed and almost lost your job and had to move 2 times. Okay, yeah. Or he's not suffering anymore. Sometimes as Christians, we don't really know what happens to our family's souls. And so when someone says that to us, we're like, we're in this world of confusion. So, what are some other things up there? Keep a stiff upper lip. So how this came at me was, wow, you're so amazing. It's like you don't even cry. It's like, because we think that the person's handling well when they're just barely holding it together, or telling them that they should or shouldn't be feeling something. Like, you shouldn't be angry at God. I think God can handle it. We can pray with that person if they're angry with God. I think there's another, is there another slide? Well, this was my personal unfavorite, at least. At least you weren't intubated. That's always my favorite one. I got sick a few years ago. And usually the sequelae of that illness is that you get intubated and you're on a ventilator for months. And I wasn't, which I'm very thankful for, by the way. But people kept saying that to me. At least you weren't on a ventilator. I'm like, yeah, but I can't walk right now. Because it kind of diminishes what the person's experiencing in that moment.
Yeah.
Or at least you got to experience pregnancy. Some people never get to do that. It's like that. And and we'll talk more about how to respond to those things in a minute. God doesn't give you any more than you can handle. People don't like hearing that because they feel very buried in their pain. And that, if you look at that scripture, it's actually talking about temptation, sin. It's not talking about loss, okay? Because sometimes the loss does feel like more than they can handle. And then it's God's will, you know, like we can all see how that might not be helpful in the moment. These things all might be objectively true, but they're just not helpful. Okay. So moving on for the mourner, then how do, Proverbs 20 verse 5. We already talked about that last week. Write that down. So what do you do instead of these unhelpful things? The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. This is where listening comes in. You're asking questions, and this is where I think you guys will like this poem. It kind of talks about that. Hey, how are you doing today with the loss of Joe? Or, hey, I was thinking about you, because you graduated this year and your mom passed. How are you doing with that? She wasn't able to be there. People will blow you off or get deep with you. Trying to draw people out instead of having some kind of magic bullet. So, taking a lunch time here. So for the mourner, if you are the person experiencing a loss, how do you love other people when you yourself are so diminished? And another concept is just mercy. Is mercy. It's like, okay, well, why mercy? Like, that sounds kind of odd. And so I'm going to read Proverbs 14, verse 10. Okay. It says, the heart knows its own bitterness, and none can share its joy. Nobody can know what you're really feeling. Nobody can know really what the loss really meant to you. I think, when you talk about, anyway, it's a big topic, but nobody can really know what that meant to you, that you lost your job or that you lost your grandma. Or, I wasn't that close to my grandparents, but some people it was like a second parent to them. This is really a bummer, and it stinks, and it's not fair, and it's not right. But given the fact that we're all Americans, and people are going to mess it up. They are. They're going to say some of these wacky things to you, and you're going to be like, and that's where mercy comes in. You've got to have mercy on people because they don't get it, and they are going to mess up. And really giving people the benefit of the doubt that they really are trying to be helpful and comforting and loving. And I think of Luke chapter 23 and verse 34, and it says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Like, most people don't know what they're doing at a funeral, or when something really bad has happened to you, or when people get sick. Like, I work in a hospital, so I'm like, yeah, I'll go to the ICU and see somebody. But for some people, they're like, whoa, that's way outside of their comfort zone. They don't know what tube is, and they don't know what they're doing. And so, if you really stop and think, like, if people knew the true impact that those hurtful words were going to have on you, they wouldn't have said them. They just don't know. And I have to tell you, before I turn it over to Diana, that sometimes Christian-type people are the worst. Because I'm not really sure why that is. I was sort of reflecting on that, but I think sometimes as disciples, we think because we found Jesus that we should have all the answers. Right. We should be able to comfort this person. We should have just the right scripture to share with them. Or we should be able to make meaning out of this. That's why, I don't know if we can back it up to the dog. It's not the time to try to fix it for the person, but we feel like, well, maybe we're afraid God doesn't have the answer for the person. He does. or the situation's so messy that it doesn't fit in the religion box, and we're like freaked out by that, and so we just say something weird. But whatever it is, you're going to mess it up. Other people are going to mess it up, and if you're the griever, I think and you're a Christian, it's important to just have mercy on people and give them the benefit of the doubt that they really were trying their best to love you. So I'm going to turn it over to Diana, but I think this poem that I gave you guys really just encompasses everything that I think is really how to be helpful to people when they're grieving. And I just thank you guys again for letting me share. So,
yeah, hi. Juna did a fantastic job talking about something that is close to our hearts in very different ways. I'm sure we're all responding and wondering how else we can process that information. So thank you, Juna, for just really being so real. I am a little bit nervous because I found that as I was preparing for this, I'm starting to think about all of the different situations I've been in that had to do with grieving and had to do with caregiving and had to do with just being even a patient and different things like that. I've had a lot of experiences, and for some reason I seem to find myself in the inner circle as a caregiver and or a recipient of somebody else's caregiving. As a patient, I think I find myself I'd rather be the patient than the caregiver because the patient knows how they're feeling, the caregiver wants to take it away and doesn't know how. And years ago, I found this marvelous little book that has been my go-to for lots of different things, for different types of grief. And in there somewhere it says, if you lose your parents, you lose your history. If you lose a sister or brother, you lose your history and present. If you lose your child, you lose your future. If you lose your husband or wife, you lose your history or your present and your future. And I'm adding this, if you lose your pet, you lose your unconditional companion. And just that knowledge has carried me through in a lot of different situations. Juna alluded to having lost her son. And I think that situation, as well as the loss of my own sister, taught me more about life than anything ever has. And I was looking at Jesus and how he dealt with the role that he was in with all of these sick people coming to him. And in John 11, verses 19 through 21, you don't have to go there, I just have it in a little blurb. It was about many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them when Lazarus died. And Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And it's like, wow, she just accused Jesus of failing her. And I have felt that also in my own process of caregiving as well as grief. Juna talked about how it's really not fair. And it truly doesn't feel fair in the moment. And then in Luke 5, 17 through 20, it says, the power of the Lord was with Jesus to heal the sick. Some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat and tried to take him into the house to lay him before Jesus. When they could not find a way because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and lowered him on his mat through the tiles in the middle of the crowd right in front of Jesus. When Jesus saw their faith, he said, friend, your sins are forgiven. And honestly, I have to say, though this is a very serious topic, that makes me laugh because they could have landed that man anywhere. They did it right in front of Jesus. But I thought, wow, how did Jesus handle that? He said, your sins are forgiven. Your faith has healed you. And sometimes as a caregiver, that's the role that we find ourselves in. We can't take away someone else's journey, but we can journey with them in whatever shape that looks like. And I was thinking about, at the time Juna and Siat were going through their experience, It was also the church's anniversary, and I was nowhere to be found, and I would not have chosen to be anywhere except by Juna's side, and that's just how it happened. And it's interesting because then there was a break, and I was able to come and join the festivities, and I was really tapped out emotionally and in every other way because some of Juna's nursing staff would come, and they were just feeling a lot. Juna and Sam were feeling a lot. I was feeling a lot, but for some reason God made me something I didn't know I could be. And but anyway, when I entered the fellowship, it was disciples who had come to visit, who were pleading with me to reach out to people who had left the church and people who had come to see them. And it just struck me as like, if they only knew where I had just been, this would be so irrelevant. And so I share that because I think sometimes we don't realize the caregiver also needs some support and some space and some time to regenerate. And those of you who have been caregivers or helped usher someone into their next life, it's, you know, it's a special place to be. But Jesus did the same thing. He felt the pressure around him. And in Mark 3, 7 through 10, it's like people were pushing forward to touch him, so much so that he got into a boat and got to get away from the crowds. And I thought, wow, now I think I know a little bit of what Jesus experienced. And then in Mark 5:30, it says the crowds were pressing. And that once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. And in a caregiver's role, it is emotionally draining, but it's so important because the person who needs that caregiving in whatever form it looks like, sometimes you're kind of the strength that they can lean on, whether you say something or not, just as Juna was sharing. But I was really inspired by the fact that at once Jesus realized power went out from him. And so caregivers sometimes lose power, but what Jesus did is he turned to God. So he turned to God for the right kind of power. And I know for me, it's easy to rely on myself and think I know the right things to do, to think I have the strength, I can do this. And then when my brother was in the hospital earlier this year, I realized I'm pretty fragile and I'm not really taking care of myself. And so I just, and so I can't emphasize enough, we have to get the right kind of power. And the right kind of power also includes eating, not overeating, but eating healthy, and to sleep, allowing time to sleep, and to delegate, get help, and to nurture what helps strengthen you. And I just have to share this. My husband's go-to is always soccer. And it helps him deal with the stress. And he's had to deal with that with my own health. And so it's just, I guess I'm really inclined to ask if anybody has any questions or anything they would want to share along these lines. There isn't one time I've been in the role as a caregiver that I would not have chosen that role. And they've all been different. Mm. And nobody can anticipate what to expect. It's just one surprise after the next. And know your limits, and like Juna said, self-awareness. So thank you.
That's part of the family, part of God's family, like in 1 Corinthians 12, where it says, all different parts, and each part, were useful. Obviously, everyone here will grieve. And everyone here will care and be a caregiver. But just like anything, there are those that are more gifted and wired, to be in those caregiver roles, when tragedy happens or some major loss or an accumulation of loss. Here's some comfort I want to give you. God knows who those people are. And when something happens in our family, they will appear. They can't help it. It is a call. You really do feel the need and the call to be there. right? And so we do have those types of supports, and we will, as a family, we're still an extremely young family too, by the way, and so we will be facing. This is a major part of life, and it really will and continue to shape our lives together. So thank you, ladies. I really appreciate, all you've been through, but also all the wisdom you've passed to us tonight. Galatians 6, verse 9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers." So obviously, the number one theme in the Bible is love, taking care of one another, loving one another, certainly loving all the people out there. But, Paul says, God says to us, but yeah, especially to the family of believers, let's make sure that we're meeting needs, that we're showing that love and care. Well, we're coming up to holiday season, Thanksgiving. And so, I started to think, what parts of our family are not here that could use some love and could use some connection? So I came up with a list. I'm not sure it's extensive. I think it's close. So if you can think of anybody else that we need to add, let me know. And you're going to see house churches listed beside it. Here's the idea. We're going to start tonight. Each house church will be responsible for one or two individuals or groups of people that we already know you're connected with. Your house church is going to be the supervisors or the organizers of putting together a care package to send to this person or persons. Now, it gets a little tricky because a lot of you know people on that list, but you're not in that house church. Well, guess what? You can still give. All the house church is going to do is coordinate the giving. So, for example, we have a very vested interest in Dawson Creek, right? And so that house church, Northeast 1 and 2, we're going to assist them. But we're going to bring cards next week for anybody that would like to write an encouragement card for the people in Dawson Creek. So it can be anything. You can come up with whatever ideas you want to put into your care package. You could put food, you could put cards, you could put gifts, you could buy them a house. I don't know what you want to do, to encourage them. But I think this would be really inspiring. So tonight, you're going to split into your house churches and brainstorm and kind of get it all flowing, who's going to be the point, all that kind of fun stuff. And then be ready for next week to kind of either solicit from everybody else, or you can do that during the week. I don't care how you do it, right? But then it's kind of packaging it up, putting together next week so that we can start sending these out for Thanksgiving and the holiday season. So here's who we have. Andrew Walsh, we hear he's not in the state anymore, something like that. He's in school in Michigan. And so, of course, that's the Wave, which is Walsh House Church, and everybody in that. They're going to be overseeing that. But as well, Garrison Thomas is off at, you're here, Connor. You get our love all the time. He's going to be wishing, watch him transfer out of state now. Garrison, who's in military now, he's just in basic right now, training, or?
He's out of basic.
Huh?
He's out of basic.
He's out of basic. So, he's another one. Kira Bowles is in Chicago area, so Hillside can take care of them. Haley Jensen's in Wisconsin, right? And so that'll be Hillside group as well. Samuel Horacica, the SOC group, and Lower Hillside's going to help out because they've got quite a few to help out. There's also David Barry Holland, who are away now, coming home. But hey, let's encourage them, because they are coming home. Lawrence Gust, and he has actually a bunch of, he actually made the suggestion already to his house church to make up a bunch of packages for a bunch of other military folk there too. So they've got a full plate. Peter Smith, remember Peter? Well, he's in Florida, and I know that he's connected with SW3. It's also connected with the ZOC group, but they're going to make up something to send to our brother Peter. Kobe's in Idaho. Is that right? Idaho. So Kobe needs some encouragement. He's in Idaho. Fairbanks, the Sand Lake group, well, that's on purpose because Debbie, who's in the Sand Lake group, has a son in the church up there, and then Derek and Eden, who are from there and actually moving back there, are also in that group. So that they can encourage that group. And then Dawson Creek, the Northeast, since you're kind of closest on the way out of the city towards Dawson Creek, you get to encourage, the Dawson Creek group. Unassigned group, I didn't want to attach you to anybody, but the San Juan and the Sartén, I think that's the only other two groups. Latch on to one of these ones, join them in putting together some great care packages. Hmm? Who? The Talkeetna should be encouraged. We could add them? We can put them anywhere we want? Yeah. Talkeetna needs to let us know
They did just ask.
where they want to join. Technically, you're closer to Dawson Creek. Well, Fairbanks too. So Fairbanks, because there's a lot of people from Fairbanks.
They said thumbs up to Fairbanks.
So Talkeetna's added to Fairbanks. Right, so to the Sand Lake House Church. Any questions? Hana, I knew we didn't bring this somebody. Hana Wood, Sand Lake group, right? Hana Wood, thank you. Anybody else on this? Man, we went over this a few times. Okay, no, but good. Anybody have any brilliant ideas that they want to share with the whole group of, care package ideas? There's no brilliance in the room. No, just kidding. Yes? What's that? Oh, topical, themed letters. Oh, I like that. Open when you're feeling this or feeling lonely or missing us or, yeah, cool. Letters, honestly, I know it's old. It's just tough to put a bunch of iPhones or iPads in there, but written, type stuff, type it if you have to, is really cool. Yes?
For them, and so everything in there's all yellow. When they open it up, it's yellow.
Brilliant idea. I love it. See, that's what I'm talking about, because I would never think of that. Oh. Yeah, don't tell Mike. He doesn't want to hear that. No. Company man. That's awesome. Yes, Morgan, nice and loud. Oh, Michelle, you gotta yell it out. They can't hear you.
They decorate plastic boxes and put pictures all over it. We don't pack anything else inside. As long as your sticker goes on, you can your stickers.
Good strategy. Connor.
I've gotten care packages before, and food has always been awesome.
Spoken as a young man, right there. Food is good. Food is good. Any other closing thoughts before we break up into, the house churches and start to put together some ideas? So again, the plan is next week, come, with your box, whatever, who's going to coordinate bringing that piece. Let's put them together as part of the midweek next week. Let's have some fun with this, and share some ideas. But also, I would encourage each group to bring some extra cards and stuff, because I know there's tons of people. I know everybody in Fairbanks, so I need to do something for everybody there type thing. So we can really work on that next week of making these really encouraging at these times where they're not right here with us. Amen? Have a great night. Thanks, guys.